and welcome to the Talk of Fame podcast. I'm Kaya Montigny. Today's guest, we are introducing you to Julian Pavone. Julian is a multi-generated drummer, arranger, producer, and band leader. He has shared a stage with legends such as Omar Hakim and Berklee's 40th anniversary signature showcase, as well as recorded for Berklee's Snarky Poppy Ensemble. He broke the Guinness World Record for youngest professional drummer at age 4 and believe it or not, still holds the record today. Julian encourages Vic Firth, Sabian Cymbals, Tycoon Percussion, and Cympad, as well as working with and recommending Fatfreq and monitors. He currently studies contemporary writing, production, and performance at Berklee College of Music and can be found performing in the greater Boston and New York area. Outside of drumming, Julian is also the president and founder of the Miracle Club, a Berklee club that hosts Battle of the Band competitions for charity. In the club's first series of events, Julian helped raise over $13,000 for Boston Children's Hospital, as well as appearing on Boston 25. Through this opportunity, Berklee students were able to present their artistry and gain exposure while seamlessly supporting a good cause. This year, the Miracle Club will be in support of the Save the Music Foundation, a charity whose mission is to help students, schools, and communities reach their full potential through the power of making music. Welcome to the show, Julian.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you made headlines when you broke the Guinness World Record for the youngest professional drummer at just 4 years old. Like, what was that like for you?
I don't really remember much because I was so young.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it wasn't something that we were out to do either. It was just like I was doing some shows when I was really young, and they had reached out because I was getting close to breaking the record. And they were like, "Hey, you're like in the running for this record." And we were like, had no idea. So it was never something we set out to do, but just from building my career when I was really young. It just so happened that I had broken the record as well.
Gosh, like, did you start drumming at 4 years old, or did you start earlier before they reached out to you?
Yeah, I was believe it. Well, the story is I started when I was 3 months old because my dad, he played drums as a hobby, and so he would have me in like a baby carrier, and I started, grabbing the sticks and hitting the sticks and hitting the drums. So that's the story.
Gosh, like he had you drums once you were born.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty much.
like,
When I was when I was in the womb, my dad would put music on my mom's stomach, so music was always a part of my life.
oh, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, of course it is. Has your passion changed with music ever since you were younger when you broke the world record? Like, has it like changed?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's changed, but I've become more aware of what else is there for me to do, like not just in music, but like in the world.
Yeah.
So I've just been exposed to more things, and then I've also become more focused at the same time on drumming. So focusing on honing my craft and studying music, so working on drumming, but then also realizing there's production, arranging, stuff like that.
Because when you're older, like the more you drum, I know you start when you're like 2 or 3 or 4 years old, and when you get older, the more you learn, the more you love music and drumming. I know my grandfather loved drumming as well.
Hmm.
So, like once I got older and more music taste, I was like, okay, should I change my music style or should I just stick for what I have? Like, do you have like a favorite music genre or type of music that you like to listen to or even play?
I really love all kinds of music. For a while, I didn't like country music, but then I grew up and I was like, I love like there's a lot of music that I love. But I think a lot of people might go through that phase of like,
Yeah.
man, I hate country music. But no, like really like all music, there's something you can pick out from it. And I love listening to all kinds. Recently, I've just been listening to a lot of jazz because, again, I really am trying to work on improving my playing and my
Mm,
sense of my musicality. So, listening to jazz, but I grew up on classic rock,
mm.
listening to Led Zeppelin, Chicago, the Beatles, and then moved to kind of pop, I guess, maybe like pop, Um, and then once I got to Berklee, I was exposed to jazz, and then my world kind of changed. But all kinds of music.
Like to go back to what you said about country music, like I was the same way years ago.
Yeah.
Like I grew up
Yeah.
mostly on like pop music. So
Mm.
I wasn't really a country music person until like maybe the pandemic. I really got into country music. And now it's become my whole personality
Mm.
recently. But like I was mostly raised on pop music. So that was really the only music I listened to growing up. And
Mm.
once I got older, I basically listened to everything like classic rock, country, pop, like basically anything. I would
Mm.
anyone that would come on the radio or someone would play or anything. But everyone's music genres or music taste changes when they get older. But classic rock or any music changes once you
Of
get
course.
older and find your actual style that you like.
Yeah, I think with that too, it's like I don't I don't think there's ever one style, you know what I mean? I think
Mhm.
at least from my approach, I've done my best to constantly be changing. So to never stay like stagnant and stay in one place with music, always listening to new music, always checking out new stuff. So yeah, because music is such a well, one, it's such a special thing, but
Mhm.
two, it's also like it's all kind of connected at
Mhm.
some points or another. So at the end of the day, we put labels on music. We put the music into different categories, but it's all music,
Mhm.
and it's all speaking to people in a very unique way. So that's I've done my best to kind of zoom out and just look at all of it.
You're right on that. Like music, whatever genre you're listening to is all the same. No matter if it's like a different type of style or what, music is always something sort of similar. Like for me, there's always like a different genre that I like every week. It's always different for me.
Mhm.
So one week all I listen to is maybe classic rock, and next week all I listen to is country. And I'm sure it's the same for you as well. Like every week it's always something different, or it's just the same music and this now listen to other music that is being released by certain artists. But I do have to ask, since you're a big music person, do you
Mhm.
have a favorite song or a favorite artist at the moment?
My favorite song of all time is "Dear Prudence" by the Beatles,
Oh,
and that's
that's a
because
good one.
yeah, I have a lot of memories attached to that song, like with my dad and my sister. And there's another song from like my mom. It's called "The Fall," and that's from a band called Rye, Rhye. Love that song. That's like one of my favorite songs of all time as well. So for like both sides of my family, because my parents are divorced. So like on my dad's side, we've got Dear Prudence, and on my mom's side, we've got The Fall. But
Oh.
for right now, like let me see. Let me think. Anderson .Paak has always been, probably my favorite artist of all time. I love his music. I have a couple of his stuff on vinyl. I was just looking over at my vinyl collection, but like I have a couple of his stuff on vinyl. He really got me into music production because in middle school or like end of elementary into middle school, I hit a pretty big hiatus in my career. And that's why like I don't talk about the record too much because it's kind of like it feels like it was for a different person or like a different version of me. So, and plus it was like almost 20 years or it was like 16 years ago, because I'm 20 now. So, I don't talk about it too much, but I do look at it as something like important for my history.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I went through a big hiatus in drumming, and it was in ninth grade when I was like, okay, I don't have to, I don't have to continue drumming. If I want to pursue something else, I could.
Hmm.
But it was something like I loved music, and I
Hmm.
had also drumming was just kind of ingrained in my soul.
Hmm.
So it was like of course I'm gonna continue drumming. But that's when I started like getting serious about it and then I discovered Anderson .Paak and realized, oh man, like he's a drummer who produces and he's like an artist. So I got really into music production and like making music. So yeah, that's been my journey pretty much.
Is it like that was really kind of like the time where you're just kind of like, do I actually want to pursue this? I feel
Yeah.
like, well, you started very young, so you kind of grew up doing drumming. But
Mhm.
was it kind of something that was like, okay, I grew up doing this. Do I have to continue doing this?
Yeah, it was like, do I enjoy it? Is it
Yeah.
something that I want to continue doing? Because yes, I did it for so long, but I also don't have to keep doing it if I didn't
Yeah.
want to. But I wanted to, so I did.
Yeah, I've honestly been the same way. Like I've been doing this for like 3 years now, ever
Mhm.
since like mid-COVID. And
Yeah,
sometimes when I'm like bored or out of my mind and have nothing else better to do, I'm just like, should I quit or is it just
yeah,
something I actually want to do on a sidetrack or when I'm that busy? Because I'm a senior in high school, so I'm like,
yeah.
do I have the time for this? Like,
Mhm.
this is a mix of like you're busy with high school stuff, senior things, college
Yeah,
appliances. I'm just like, well, is it something I should let alone pass on, maybe do it at least once a month? Or do I actually want to do this like full time, you know?
right. Yeah,
But going back to the Beatles, like, did you ever hear the song Hey Jude
of
by the
course. Yeah.
Beatles? Oh my, how do you feel about that song? Besides one of
I
my favorite
mean,
Beatles songs, so I had to ask.
yeah. It's a beautiful song, and it's written about his son, or I'm sorry, not his son, because it's Paul singing that, but it was written for John Lennon's son, and his name is Julian, and that's who I'm named after. So Hey
Oh,
Jude is
what?
about yeah, Hey Jude is about John Lennon's son Julian, and yeah, I mean it's a beautiful song. Like the Beatles were so influential in songwriting, and this idea of like a band, like that's the
Mhm.
most famous band of all time.
Right? And they just
So
had like
yeah,
a documentary or something in the theaters about
yeah,
Paul McCartney.
yeah. No, I mean, and
So,
yeah, for Paul McCartney to still be out and like doing music and stuff is incredible. But each of them were so influential, and you've got Ringo Starr, on the drums and his unique feel.
mhm.
So the whole band was just like super influential to music.
It was. And even after John Lennon's assassination years ago, like they were honestly bigger than ever. And a lot of people like went silent after John Lennon was assassinated. Like it is the world just shut it down. It was like Elvis Presley's death, but 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember it personally, but like yeah, that must have been crazy.
I know. Like, when I read stuff about it, I'm just like, to be alive during that time, like I would have probably been heartbroken and
Yeah.
I wouldn't recover.
Yeah, no, I know my dad was pretty affected by it, because my dad was the big Beatles fan, so he got me into the Beatles. So,
Oh yeah, like my best friend's family loves the Beatles, so I kind
mhm,
of got into a bit of her family. But I
yeah.
wasn't really a big rock and roll person until like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago.
Mhm.
But the Beatles are just a band that no one could ever be like them, because they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest band of all time.
Yeah.
So it's like no one could kind of live up to what a difference they made. They like when Paul McCarthy's documentary came out a few weeks ago. I saw the ending of it, but not the full version. He kind of, I don't know if you saw it or not, but he kind of went into the process of like the songwriting details, how they got famous, John Lennon and everything. I'm just like, oh my God, like he's still making songs at his age after the Beatles kind of broke up years ago. I'm just like, he's still going at it because I know with most people in bands, they just once the band breaks up, they never make music ever again.
Yeah, it's a lot of like music being the way that just Paul McCartney, well, for example, but and this goes for a lot of people. Like when you do music, most of the time it's not really from a choice of like, oh, I'm gonna like try this music thing. There's always like it's a deep love for it. It's like how you navigate the world. You navigate the world with music, and you're just thinking always in terms of music, and that's what you love. So it's like when you love doing music, regardless of if you have an audience or not, or whether you're in a band or not, like you're gonna continue to make music,
Yeah.
and it's just like that's part of, yeah. I feel like I resonate with that to a certain degree of just loving music, and it's just kind of how I operate, you know?
Yeah, I'm
So,
the same way, even though I'm not a musician by all means.
mm,
I am a person that whenever I'm doing work or something, or I'm just out and about, I literally have my AirPods in or just playing blasting music in a car or something.
mhm.
Music is always on, whether you're around me or not.
Yeah,
And with music, it does play such a meaningful role, even if you're a musician or just generally just listen to a bunch of music. Music does play such a meaningful way in your life that you never
yeah,
expected. So it's like, even if you are a musician and you are in a band that's maybe not existent anymore, you're just like, well, I love music to a certain degree, but I can't do this anymore. And that can happen to anyone, even if you're a musician or not. Sometimes you just realize, like, okay, like, I don't love this as much as I do, even though I love music. Songwriting isn't as big. Because I know when John Bon Jovi was in Bon Jovi, he had things with his voice, like his vocal
mhm.
cords.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he didn't really do as much as performing or making music. That's because of his voice. So anything can happen just because of your voice range or how you feel after performing for maybe for a certain degree.
yeah, 100%.
So to go back to a youngest professional drummer, like what was kind of like the process like for you and your family in preparing to break the world record for the youngest professional drummer?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, it was never something we set out to do. It was just I had been performing growing up, doing shows, and they reached out just saying I was in the running because there's I had to do like a certain amount of or a certain amount of performances. I had to be paid to do the performances, and yeah, there's other like requirements like that. So we were just on the way to beating the record, and that's what happened.
Like were you up against other people or was it just you that were kind of doing other things?
There was a previous holder. It was a drummer out of Japan, and so I think he had the record at 9. So yeah, again, it wasn't like multiple people got together and were like, oh, we're gonna race, you know what I mean, and like get this. It was just like, I was doing my thing, performing, and then Guinness reached out, and we went from there.
That's great that they found you because like when you start performing at that age, like
Mm,
I like personally, I wouldn't think about the Guinness World Records or whatever it's called until someone reached out like, oh, that's a thing, that's a record that's in existence. I wouldn't think that was an award for that or a record.
yeah, like at the time, because Guinness too has change a little bit. There's a lot of like you usually see like the tallest man or you're like the
Yeah.
tallest person, you know what I mean? Like or the biggest skateboard, you know, but like Guinness I think was bigger. Like I remember Dude Perfect, like watching Dude Perfect on YouTube, like
Yeah.
breaking records, you know. So it was like it's just like times have changed a little bit. But at the time, yeah, it had some heft to it. And again, it's still a very important part of my history and like where I come from and how I got here today. So
Yeah, like it definitely gets you kind of starting out there. And it does encourage you with that because not a lot of people win those rare records. Like people probably go ride or die to win one of those records. Like do
yeah.
perfect. Like I used to watch them as well. So it was
Yeah.
like when I saw them, I was like, well, they're gonna break a record at some point. It's a matter of what. So but
Yeah.
they have a record for really anything. So it's like you can just try something or read the book or something and see,
Hmm.
oh, this person maybe flipped two skateboards, for example, and landed at the same time. Like
Hmm.
it's literally like you can get it for anything, which is crazy.
Hmm. Yeah.
And as a multi-genre drummer, like how do you adapt your playing style to fit different musical genres? And do you have a favorite genre to play personally?
In terms of like my favorite genres and the genres I really enjoy playing, um, and how I adapt it, it's from like zooming out. So like zooming out and looking at music from a little bit of a broader perspective and realizing like it is all connected. You know what I mean? It's like there are going to be certain styles I enjoy playing more. Like that's just bound to happen.
Mhm.
And there's also, yeah, there's going to be certain things that you just spend more time doing just based on like the people you're around or the music you're listening to. So all those things and like your your upbringing, like that's going to affect the music that you enjoy listening to.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, it's from listening to just a lot of music. So like listening to a lot of music, being put in positions where I have to prepare different types of music, it just keeps me like on my toes. It keeps me, um, yeah, ready for hopefully anything.
Yeah, like as a musician, like it really does keep you on your toes for really anything, whether you're maybe a drummer like yourself or just creating music or as a songwriter. Like it keeps you busy, and as a lot of musicians, they juggle between maybe classic rock, pop, country, or maybe combine all of them at the same time for an EP or an album. So it always
Mhm.
keeps people on their toes, always busy trying to make a new music. But not everything always comes out once, which people oftentimes stress, like, oh my gosh, like I haven't maybe released a song in like 2 years. And they always try to kind of force themselves to write a song to release, even though it might be that good, maybe it's because it's rushed. Not a lot of music is as good if it's rushed. And
Yeah,
sometimes people just sometimes rush it just because they haven't released some music in 2 years. So it really does keep you on their toes, but nothing should be rushed, even though maybe you haven't released music in 2 years or so. But being a musician always keeps you busy on your toes 24/7.
pretty much. Yeah.
So, looking ahead, like what are your goals for future, both as a musician and as a founder of the Miracle Club?
Um, I right now I'm playing with an artist out of Boston. He also goes to Berklee, but his name is Simon Davis. And I've been playing his music and we have an incredible band put together. And I have a lot of faith in his music and in this band. So I want to keep playing with these people as much as I can because it's like not only do I love the music, but I love everybody involved. And
Mhm.
they've all become some of my closest friends, and I feel like I connect with them on a deep level. So I want to keep playing with this group as long as I can.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's one thing. Another thing too is just continuing to play jazz and like play with more just keep playing with more musicians, meeting more people, being able to share those experiences, playing music with as many people as I can.
Mhm.
And for the club, I don't, we're right now, like we're in our second, this is like our second year. So our first event is going to be this Friday, and we've got some more events throughout the semester. So right now I'm just focusing on that. But in terms of like next year, um, definitely just continuing to work on the project, seeing how we can continue to expand. We've got some cool stuff coming up in the spring where our winners are going to perform in something called Band Jam.
Mhm.
And so we have something here at Berklee called Career Jam. And Career Jam is like that's when all the students are able to network with Sony and Warner, like all these big music groups and companies and labels and etc. But there's an after party for Career Jam because we have a keynote speaker. Last spring we had Phineas, who it's Billie Eilish's brother
Mhm.
and Billie Eilish's producer, and he was incredible. Like he came and spoke, and yeah. So the for the Career Jam after party, the winners from our competition are going to be able to perform in that, and so yeah, it should be really cool. We're fundraising for Save the Music, which is a foundation. They create music programs and they donate music technology to middle schools and high schools. So all really good stuff. Always, staying busy, like we said.
Oh, that sounds so fun. I can't wait for more information on this. That seems so much fun to go
Yeah.
to. And of course, Berkeley is the home of music, so that is honestly the perfect place for music and to get all of these people together and everything. So that seems it's gonna be such a fun time. But
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on
Yeah,
this time and talking with us. It means so much to have you on today. And it was great chatting with you and really appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
for sure. Thank you for having me.
So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, and review, and make sure to stay tuned for next episode. And thank you everyone for listening. And